Good morning. I'm very, very pleased to introduce this meeting devoted to the meeting with the jury of the Illustrators exhibition 2023. Thank you for coming, and I'm very pleased to introduce you our jury members. Erik Titusson, former director of the Rhode Island School of Design, USA. Christine Morault, founder of Edition MeMO, France. I have at my right Erik Telfort, illustrator, artist, and teacher of digital illustration and character design at Rhode Island School of Design. I have Sidney Smith, author and illustrator, winner of 4 consecutive New York Times Best Illustrated Children's Books Award and 2 Kate Greenaway Awards from Canada. We have Gusti here, illustrator, and is a teacher, illustrator, author. We know him very well. He's been awarded also with the Bologna Ragazzi Award a few years ago. This incredible group worked together with an almost impossible task, I have to say. They worked in different ways, so being at distance, then getting together here in Bologna. I had the pleasure to meet them in Bologna. It was much colder, it was winter, and I want to give you will hear, I know this is an eagerly awaited meeting. I know there are many illustrators among you, and it's always an emotion to meet the jury who made some choices that are so important for illustrators' careers. You will hear the experience of selecting the artworks among so many from the voice of the jury members. But before, I just want to give you some little information about the work that they have done. The number of illustrators who entered their work for the 2023 Illustrators exhibition is 4,345. Thank you for that. And so we're talking about 21,725 illustrations entered from 91 region and country from all over the world. And this year, the process was in different steps, but at the beginning, the final selection involves, that you can see in the beautiful exhibition that is just there, the final selection is of 79 sets of illustrations. You know, it's the work of 80 artists from 28 countries and regions of the world. So it was really a huge task, and a jury is always a sort of magic, because many different perspectives and competence and skills are getting together as a whole to create an exhibition. So as a first thing, I want to thank our jury for their incredible work. Help me saying thank you with an applause, please. Because it's a huge task. They're coming from all over the world. They got together, they discussed things, and they finally chose the exhibition that you can see today. So I will start with Christine Morault, publisher of Edition MeMO. You bring your perspective as publisher into this, let's say, ocean of illustrations, and meeting other perspectives and views and experiences. So how was the experience, Christine Morault?
Thank you, Marcella. It was very interesting. I know everybody says this, but it's not like saying it's interesting. It's really the case, because there was 2 illustrators, Gusti and Sidney, 1 teacher, Erik, 1 other publisher, Erik, with a K, and we had to choose things not only because we loved them or liked them, but also trying to see what was the sincerity and the special amount of personality they put in their drawing. And it was funny because sometimes, well, Gusti made a little picture of me saying no, because sometimes I thought, well, this is very well done, very well drawn, but it lacks of sincerity. People are trying so much, and I know there's many illustrators here, to do the best drawing possible, and sometimes also being inspired instead. And I really can only say one word to everybody: be yourself. Put in this art you are producing something of your experience, of your culture, something real, because that's what, as publishers, we are looking for. We're not looking for the best well-drawn hand or feet or anything or tree. We are looking for something different, something one of a kind. Somebody, we're looking for somebody. And this was the exercise we had to do. Sometimes we were all agreeing, sometimes not agreeing at all. It's a really incredible human experience, and I was very happy to be part of it. Now, to choose almost 80 images, works with 4,000, more than 4,000 files was really something of a challenge. And good luck for the next ones to come, because it's a lot. But I know it also is a lot for all these illustrators. Some of you maybe today are not in the selection. Some of you are in the selection. I just wanted to tell to all of you that it doesn't mean your work isn't relevant. Keep on doing, keep on drawing, keep on being artists and authors, and don't listen to people who will tell you, well, you didn't make it, so you never make it. And because it's only a matter of, as a jury is sometimes, something could have stayed in the selection and didn't make it. It's a very, very, very strange experience for that, Keep on doing. I'm going to look at the image, not to be too long, and thank you for having sent your work, for the ones who sent their work.
Thank you very much, Christine, for mentioning this. That for us is very, very important, because the exhibition, it's the choice, it's the result of a choice of a group, which has a soul as a group and become a curator, and but is one of the possible exhibitions that come out from those submissions. And thank you for mentioning it, Christine. It means a lot to us. I have to say, during the years, we see in this exhibition many different artists, and we see their careers. We have the International Prize of Illustration that will be selected among the finalists, and we see careers, and we see different exhibition every year. So now I would like to go into the eyes of the jury members to see what they were looking for. And I ask you, Christine, you chose, we asked them to bring some examples of things that they really love. Okay, I want to acknowledge that it's not a short list. Okay, it's just a way for us to know a little bit more of our jury members' poetic or of their tastes. So, Christine, what were you looking for? I know there is an illustrator you liked and you took as an example. Now we can see the images that you selected, but I'm interested in what you were looking for. What made your art beat?
Okay, my art always beats, as I said, on sincerity. And also I love folk art. I like when it's plain and simple. Sometimes I'm not looking personally for some very complicated and sophisticated work. I like when it's straightforward and has some kind of poetry in it. And that's the image, I don't know, yes, you see it, of Yumi Kimura. I don't know if Yumi Kimura is here. It would be wonderful, but I don't see no hand
Is Yumi Kimura
raising.
here?
No, nobody is raising hand. And
See, is there. He's
Well-
just very shy.
where?
He's hiding. No. He couldn't make it.
Okay.
Thank you, Hayami.
I thank him for this little horse because, well, there's many ways to draw a horse, but I really love that one. And also because our catalog goes more on this kind of images than on very sophisticated and intricate lines images. I like when it's plain and meaningful and tender and joyful, and this is the case of this work. I wanted also to say something, I don't know if you're waiting that from me, but I was very surprised and astonished by the number of very good works coming from China. I know there's a lot of Chinese students in a lot of art schools, and this is relevant. We had really a very huge number of projects being chosen, and I think this is a little bit like Korea 10 years or 15 years ago, when they started really to have a very important number of very good illustrators on the international scene. And so I was impressed. I was impressed by China this year. This is something different from the image. So I hope you share with me this love for these images. And I thank Yumi Kimura for that. And I'll try to get in touch with him or her, as this is not one of my choices. And I give now this to somebody else.
Sure. Thank you
you.
so much, Christine. Thank you for also mentioning the tenderness or the sweetness, because those qualities are qualities that belong to childhood. We are not scared of the nightmare and fears of children, but we do want to acknowledge how important it is also to get into their feeling in a delicate way. So you explained it very well. And now I would like to ask to Erik Telfort, who is here at my right, how was for you this experience of group and of diving into this ocean of illustrations, and what were you looking for also?
Well, this was my first trip to Bologna, and to be invited to the Children's Book Fair. So this whole experience is very brand new to me. I teach at the Rhode Island School of Design, where I'm the department head of illustration, and our department, it's the largest department at the college, and one of our greatest exports is children's books. So to be here and see the enormous variety of children's books illustrators was very inspiring, and I really hope next year to promote the Children's Book Fair and have my students apply and try to be a part of this.
We look forward to it.
Yes. Being on the jury, I felt very intimidated because, such a wealth of knowledge and information that my fellow peers had. I many times found myself sitting back and sort of listening to their keen eye on different ways of looking and different ways of seeing. And one of the things that we promote at the school that I teach is providing students with a sense of authorship, authenticity in the work that they make. And so my contribution to the jury was trying to make sure that I was paying attention to the works that felt very authentic, that were not trying to follow trends that you usually see in popular commercial illustration. I also like the images, such as the one that we're looking at right now, where there was a little bit of participation from the viewer to imagine and complete the image. I think sometimes, as someone who is a figure artist, I do oil paintings, I like to render a lot. I appreciate people who are able to let go sometimes in ways that I have a hard time doing, because I think Innovative artistic practice is where one is willing to look at the past and make a comment or react to the art community. They're not just recreating something that they see line for line or bit for bit. And so I felt, like we're looking at Ines Oliveira Villegas' work, I thought this piece very much represented the criteria that I used in critiquing the works. This is something that I would probably never be able to do, and I think that is an achievement for an artist to create something so powerful and so complicated, something that can make an artist like myself stop and really have to think, how would I create this image? What is this image trying to convey? And so on and so forth.
It's so beautiful to see how the perspective, of the cultivated perspective of an artist and of a teacher devote its work to look attentively at every illustration. Thank you so much. Maybe you want to add something, because you also chose these images among your favorites. Let's say they had a limited number they could choose, of course. But I just want to underline that I really appreciate what you said about the research that the illustrator do, because sometimes young illustrators are concerned in doing something, for example, innovative or recognizable on the other hand, so finding their style or following trends. So it's really impactful what you said about the art of illustration. You use this work, and all this group is giving a tribute to the art of illustration, I think, with your work. So thank you. If you want to say a few words more, you have a few images more.
Sure. So this piece, what I really liked about this piece was the fact that for some reason I couldn't get my mind out of music while looking at this. I felt that there was a lot of movement, and I'll have to say when we were critiquing this piece, for some reason I could see the shape sort of moving from side to side. And I think, again, when illustration, when you sort of break it down to its foundation, the artist is illuminating the text. And I think illuminating the text is, at this point, there are so many illustrators who I felt did a really great job of illuminating the text. But when the artist engages other senses, like sound and taste and smell, it starts to turn into something else. It's almost like the same kind of poetry that music does, when music engages different senses. And I think art, for the longest time, has been trying to chase music, because music tends to last forever, and art becomes almost, and many art movements become footnotes in art history. I felt like this piece to me was a great example of one that was really trying to engage something other than just the visual senses.
This resounds the history of the thoughts about the art of illustration. Maurice Sendak was underlying music and dynamism being the most important qualities in the art of illustration for picture book.
Correct.
And it's really beautiful what you said about illustrations that involve other senses, like in the synesthesia. Do you say that? Yeah, synesthetic feeling.
Yes, and this is Lorenzo's piece, which, I guess this is more personal. When we were young growing up, my sister, she used to take the old phone books, and she used to rip up the phone books and line them up on the floor, and then she would take our tennis shoes and put the tennis shoes by the paper, and she would play teacher. And I don't know how this happened, but while looking at this illustration, I immediately went back to that moment, and I felt that Lorenzo's piece did something powerful in sort of creating a great sense of resonance, a place where somebody can look at an image and think back to their own childhood as a way to connect to the illustrator. And it's very playful. Not everything is illustrated. You see a lot of negative space. And the negative space, again, I keep going back to, I think powerful illustration is where the viewer can imagine the rest, or the viewer can participate and inject themselves into the illustration and almost be a collaborator with the artist. And I thought this was a great example of that.
That's such a great definition of it, yeah. Erik, I love it. And so a space for a viewer, a space for the reader to live new experiences. And thank you so much for it. I think Noshin Sadegian was, is it yours, yes. Your choice?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what drew me to this piece also was the fact that the artist really abstracted. When you look at the image initially, it's almost like abstract geometric shapes. But then the longer you look at it, it starts to reveal a story. And to me, this kind of imagery, it's very flat in nature. But I think in terms of the dimensions that one can derive from this, it's a very multi-dimensional piece. It's also an illustration that I'm just not used to seeing. So for me, again, as somebody who teaches at an illustration university where we see hundreds of students every year, I'm always looking for something fresh, something that's going to engage my own curiosity, something that's going to make me think and wonder. And I thought this was a great example to summarize the other 78 people that we chose to be in the exhibition.
That's fantastic. And I tell you, you will have all these images in the beautiful annual that we publish every year with Corraini, Bologna Children's Book Fair with Corraini. Thank you, Christine. And you can also find some beautiful, beautiful writings of our wonderful jury members to know more about their language and their culture, about the art of illustration. And thank you very much, Erik, Telford. It was
a pleasure.
A great pleasure to listen to you. And I go to Erik Titusson, and former president of ALMA, grazie, Astrid Lindgren Memorial Award, and a publisher yourself, Lillapiratforlaget. Am I right? Piratforlaget, an independent publisher of quality children's literature based in Sweden. So you have experience as director of a very important international award as ALMA, and also you have the perspective of a publisher. So how was this experience? You are a long friend of Bologna Children's Book Fair. It's years that we have the pleasure to have you here, but this was in another role. So how was that? And if you want to move the illustration you chose, just to tell about your tastes and your experience. Thank you.
No, I mean, it was a wonderful experience to be able to work together with this team to discuss images. Because when you talk about images, you really get an idea of your own view. You get a vision of your own view. And this is something that's very important as a publisher to understand how that works. So I think it was a very rewarding experience to be on the jury, and I was very amazed at the variation of techniques used in all this. You can see it in the exhibition that we have everything from embroidery through printmaking to digital to, I mean, there's a whole spectrum of techniques used, and I think that's amazing how images can be created. So I did. Shall I?
Yes, that is the one, and so we can see.
This is one of
images that you love. Yeah.
This is by Alexandra Rundle from Latvia, and it's always great to look at nudity, but I think this is a really fun project because she combines very wild brushes with delicate pencils, and so it's an interesting combination of techniques in one image, and it still works. And also, it's a reminder that a nude body is never really nude. You know, each body tells a story. So I think this is an image that has many stories in the same image. So that's one of the reasons why I really like this one. It also reminds me of the Lithuanian contribution to the Venice Biennale, which was an opera performance where they were lying in sand and singing. I don't know if you saw it. It won the Golden Lion in the Venice Biennale. And this has a similar kind of quality, this kind of poetry to it, I think. And then, I mean, Erik, Telfort and I chose the same image. I didn't know, but it's, I think, Jean Macagne, I'm not sure I pronounce it the right way, but I think this is an illustrator that invites the viewer into her own landscape. And you have a feeling that you can wander around in this landscape. And there is a potential of discovery in this landscape. So I almost get the feeling that I can discover things that the illustrator didn't even herself know existed in the image. And I really like this feeling that an illustrator can give. And there is a sense of humor to these images that I never underestimate humor. Also, I think the one thing that I looked at when we did the selection is the narrative quality of the images. Because it's one thing to make 5 images, but it's a different thing to tell a story. And I think McCain is one of the illustrators that really tell a story. So that's why I chose this one.
Humor is very important. Gianni Rodari, the famous writer and journalist that for us is so dear, used to say that humor is always underestimated in schools, for example, in school. And it's a very important element in our life in general, from childhood on. So thank you for mentioning it.
This is a project by Juliana Litke from Hungary, and I had seen this project before because it was part of the Depictus unpublished picture book project, which I can recommend visiting also in Hall 30, the Depictus booth. So I was familiar with this project before I saw it in the jury, and I really find it interesting because it's a great reminder that the big drama can take place in small details. I think it's a misunderstanding that big drama is big events. But if you really look closely to something, like Juliana Litke does in this book, she looks closely at a potato growing. Something's growing on. And by just studying this, and she reveals a big drama in this project. So that's one of the reasons why I find it interesting. And sometimes a great book is an idea, a clever idea that you make the most of. So you have the idea and then you really dig deep in that idea and make the most of that idea. And not to try and add things on top of it, but to really go deep into the idea. I think Juliana Litke has done that in this project. And like Erik Telfort, I also chose, we didn't know which images we were going to select, so it's a bit funny. But this is also Lorenzo Sangio. And for me, I found this project interesting because I looked at the narrative quality, but also a character development. And I think this is a great example of character development. For me, a great character is when you see the character on the page, you really feel like you are seeing a character, not an image of a character. And this is a quality that I'm always looking for in illustration. When you look at this image, you really see a character, not a depiction of a character. I don't know how to explain it better than that, but I think you can all see it. And it's also a reminder that in order to create something great, sometimes you have to start over again and again and again and again, like the cat does. So yeah, it's been a great experience. And I could have chosen so many different projects from all these great... this is just an example.
Thank you so much, Erik. And I think this image is also a very strong metaphor of what we are talking about, because we began saying that all of the illustrators that applied and also the ones that are not selected, they should keep on researching about their art. And so this is really a beautiful image of that research that in art is always at the base of the work of art, no? the real work of art. So thank you so much, Erik, for your words. Christine, do you want to add something?
Just a little detail.
Sure.
Depictus is to be found on Hall 25 That's okay.
Thank you,
And
Christine.
I just take the opportunity to say that that was something great that was invented by Sam McCullen, is to offer like a platform where we publishers can see projects beforehand, and it's been something quite wonderful that has been created for illustrators and publishers.
Thank you so much, Christine. So we go to Gusti. Do you have a mic? Okay. And
Can you pass the image? No?
Gusti, we have also, yes, here you find playing green here. You can select your images. And yes, an author, an illustrator, and also a teacher. You work with many people. This is Christine Morrow. Go ahead. This is the green, the big green. Okay. Diletta, can you put the images of Gusti, please? Okay, go ahead and we will. Okay. Okay. And Gusti, no. Diletta, can you help us? Maybe we can go with Sidney at the moment. What do you think? And then we will find your images. And sorry for that, Gusti. We will go back to you, of course. So Sidney Smith, author and illustrator, we say awarded many times. So with the eye of the artist and the storyteller that you are, how was the experience and what were you looking for?
Am I controlling this? Is it moving on its own?
No, it's you have to move.
I was controlling it. I'm sorry.
I think
I'm really sorry.
It recorded the 100 of clicks that Gusti made.
Okay.
Searching for his images.
I don't know if I can get to my images, but I found this experience to be very rewarding and also very humbling because during my journey and my career as an illustrator, you kind of foster an idea of what is good and what is bad. And so when I flew here from Canada, I thought this will be really easy because I know what's good and I know what's bad, or I know what I like and I know what I don't like. But then as soon as you get to sit around people who have different perspectives and different histories, come from different places, you're reminded that we all have our own biases. And it's not that we are all deciding which is the best and which is the worst, or there's no worst, but which is better than others. It's more of a dialogue, and that was the most rewarding part, was hearing from other people. Some of the conversations that we had sometimes we had conflict, and those were some of my favorite images, ones that inspired discussion and inspired some of us to really fight for the image. During the whole process, you get to see the most popular images at the top. You see what we all voted for, what had the highest marks. And at first I considered those to be the best, but they're not the best. They don't have to be the best. The goal is not to please everybody. Some of the best had the lowest marks, but brought out passion in one or two of us. So it makes you ask yourself, what is your goal as an illustrator, as an artist, as someone who is trying to connect to other people? Sometimes it's more valuable to affect one person passionately than it is to entertain the world. It's more important. Of course, there's certain aesthetics that I'm drawn to personally, and this is an example. There were a lot of amazing entries, but I found that there were a few that really handled color and light in a very specific way that I enjoyed. This is we don't see the name, but I think they're an entry from Iran. And the perspective of this one, obviously, is a very engaging. and here's an example of an entry that made me stop and question the choices that they made. And I think that is maybe one of the things I was looking for the most. There's a sense of risk. There's a sense of individuality, originality, in the sense that it's coming directly from the artists themselves. So this is one that brought up a lot of conversation. There were, and I think that is a sign that it had something, there was really something to it. Also, I'm partial to a narrative image or sequential images, so using panels to tell a story. And these kind of images are not so obvious about the order in which you read it or what each image, what each panel is telling you. You have to kind of come up with the story yourself. And I really love that. I love it when an artist or an illustrator or an author respects the reader enough to say, this is, you know, it's up to you. They engage you to tell the story as well. You're not just a passive, reader. This is another one which brought up something in me that I really wanted to fight for, and I think because it has, I mean, it was different than everything else that I saw, and that means something when you're looking at 4,000 images, when you see something that stands out. So for that, on its own, I felt needed to be selected, but beyond that, it feels like a really good balance between historical, factual imagery, traditional screen printing, but also a mix with something a little bit more whimsical. Kind of like, it reminds me, do you know, like phone books? We don't really have them anymore, but every time you're on the phone and you
Sure.
start doodling in the corner,
Automatic
and
notes
with sort
or
of without even thinking, and then that's what it sort of reminds me of. So it feels very whimsical, but it's balanced with this very technical.
And Sidney, did you
yeah.
notice that Flavia Bonfin also was awarded with the Bologna Ragazzi Award, the special mention for the section photography with this book? And you will find it in the amazing bookshelves among the more than 100 books selected and awarded with the Bologna Ragazzi Award. So this is interesting because sometimes things pop up in that year and you find them in different places. It's nice. It's a shared, like a shared shared perspective on it. So
I didn't know that until afterwards.
yeah, it's a Brazilian book.
Yeah,
About
but
the
one of the
sailor.
things that I was thinking about a lot was how I, as a young illustrator, when I was starting and I was learning, I would always go to these Bologna Illustrator exhibition catalogs. I would find them in my little city in Canada, and I would dream about coming to Bologna because it's this. This meeting place, this mecca of inspiration and innovation, and it represents everything that's exciting in the world of illustration. And so I was thinking about what would I, as a young illustrator, want to see? How can I inspire through our selections the young illustrators who will be the next to be featured in this exhibition next year or the year after. So
This is an honor for us, Sidney, to hear this. It's beautiful to hear that Bologna meant something for you and for your career and for everybody's careers. We're working for this. And I want just to acknowledge something, that this incredible work that the team of the jury members has done was guided step by step by a curator that is here, and I really want to acknowledge her work, and it's Deanna Belluti. And please, you know that Bologna Children's Book Fair has a team working of people and consultants you all see, and it's the International Day of the Women, and we have to acknowledge we are all women. And this big work is done with a lot of care and devotion, and Deanna Belluti is the curator of all the process. You all know her, and so the curator of the exhibition. I just wanted to acknowledge that, Sidney. Thank you.
I don't know if Mark. This is another example of someone who feels it feels like they have a really good grasp of color. And color was a big deal for me because you didn't see a lot of expert use of color to this degree, but also I'm always drawn to someone who has a confidence, but also I think this is another example, someone who works with confidence, but also takes a risk. This is another example of use of color that is makes you stop and really question their intentions and their choices. And I think for me personally, that's the highest priority. I have to stop and question why, as well as be engaged by the narrative, by the characters, by the composition. I'll let Gusti talk about this one because, I mean, you chose this one as well, right? But it sort of fits within my other criteria.
Great. So thank you very much, Sidney. And yeah, we'll go back to the keywords that are coming out. They're beautiful, no? The joy, the research, the courage, the risk. But I don't want to take more time out of Gusti. So author, illustrator, and artist and teacher. You also work with many people like children and grown-ups. And now we'll see the images of Gusti as well. And how was the experience for you?
It was a big experience. I realized that we create like a container or a character composed by different people with different life experience. And we create this container. Inside this container there are emotions, life, travels, when you were a child, and etc. And all these elements we met together to choose stories, something that we touch our heart. I love that because you can see with the eyes of the other. You can feel with the heart of the other. And sometimes you say, why? I didn't realize this part, or I never thought that became so interesting. In my case, I was looking for the identity. I was surprised why there in this, I speak with my experience, why so many illustrators make so little person now. A lot of it's like, me, I can draw like this. It's impossible, so little one. And so many stories in a little pieces like this. I was looking at that. The first, something that touched me, it's not necessary to know the name of the artist. Is I can connect absolutely just like this. Another way, I was looking something more spiritual. For example, in this case, I met that it's not just an image. It represents an universe, a cosmogony or something.
Yes.
with the elements of the, I imagine, Latin American cosmogony, Mexican, Colombian, I don't know, but I was touched for this regard from, can pass?
Diletta, can you change it? Dalla regia, per favore? Mi spostate voi le... Ok.
Well,
No.
that's,
Andate indietro un attimo.
non so come funziona.
Ok. What do
Okay.
you think?
That's I was I love this image. I love this kind of illustration. It's wow, big talent to represent the power of the nature. No, that the human being became really little with the oceans, with the elements. I felt like I can travel in this boat. No, I'm. It's colder, so to represent that is not to paint with, is yeah, yeah. The representation of the nature is difficult, and in this case, for me, it's really well done. The next one, me, I must touch.
Try... Yes, great.
I was before another one.
No, ce n'è una prima, Diletta, per
Ce n'è
favore.
prima.
Eccola, grazie.
Okay, what is Miguel Tanco is I really appreciate this illustrator, this person, because for me it's touched with the. I can explain. You know when you drive in a car, you open the window and you put your hand, and the hand with the window is like this. Well, this kind of feeling to represent is it's really complicated, and he touched, yeah, with. It's not important if it's good, well done or not. He's absolutely sharing child feelings, no, the innocence of the child. For me, it's really important that. Sometimes we lose in the techniques, to try to be the good one, and sometimes we forget the simple things like to breathe, to listen, oh, I'm worried, and there are birds singing, no, and forget that. In this case, I found all this. So the drawing is to service to share these feelings, in my opinion. That is incredible. There are a lot of incredible illustrators. I would like to say that you're not better because you are in the exhibition, or you are bad because you're not choose. That is not really like this. In half an hour we can change and we can put another illustrator in place of the other. But I think I love to sketch, to go to the city, to sketch the reality, and but he's making his point of view. He's not looking like realistic. All his movement, all his the colors, he's enjoy. And what is something that for me is important? Enjoy doing that. It's really boring and heavy to be an illustrator also. And that is Santiago Guevara. Is a younger Colombian guy. I know him, and he's so strong at drawing. So I was surprised when I met that, because he can make incredible. So I think he's so talented, but he needs to enjoy. He needs to play. And so I received that. No, that is important. Not always wow. Sometimes to enjoy is so important, more than a prize. And I felt that, that talent artist playing, and I sent this play to the exhibition, not to, because he can make a big, so wow. No, hey, look, I playing like a child. That's important for me.
Thank you so much, Gusti. You mentioned so many important things. So looking for identity and also the sense of child, I really liked it, and also this playfulness of the gesture of art. You all mentioned very important thing. I think you declared some poetics of your work, of your professions as artists and publishers and teachers. So I want to thank you very much for your words. And now, in a little time, we'll have the pleasure to give their paper, their recognition to the selected illustrators. So stay here, because in a little while you will be called onto the stage. So thanks once again to this wonderful jury that gave us a taste of what is really being deeply in the sense of child and in the sense of children's book. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening.